What's going on? How y'all doing, man? So here at the Great Man Podcast, figured I'd touch on a topic, a subject that some people don't really consider, and that is what it means to actually become a law enforcement professional. Now, I'm going to go ahead and talk about that. We're going to talk about some of the pros and some of the cons. It's not all of them. It's kind of just an overview, but I feel like the information I'm going to give you is important. It's vital for those out there who may be interested in making a decision to make the leap to jump into the career. All right? Check it out.
Yes.
All right, so to kind of give you guys an overview of myself personally, I have been in law enforcement for about 11 and a half, almost 12 years, spanning three different states. Started off in the prison system. I've done juvenile jail, hospital officer, been a deputy sheriff, worked with local, state, and federal agencies, and have had the opportunity to meet and make the acquaintance of two guys who work for Interpol, which is kind of cool. That's the international police, and they have cooperation from several different countries, and I believe they're out of the United Nations. So, um, me being an inquisitive guy, I'm always training. I'm always training and networking with different people, like always. I pretty much live at the range, and I'm going to be putting some of those videos up too. But back on topic. I feel like I'm able to give you guys a pretty good overview of what to expect if you want to be in the law enforcement world. So, law enforcement, it is a business for those who are called to do the profession. It's not for people who are expecting uh, some huge sum of money. Personal opinion, whether you are a correctional officer or you're a police officer on the street, patrol, whatever, I believe that we are an underpaid profession. And what I mean by underpaid profession is that for all the things that we have to deal with, for all of the trauma that we are exposed to and experience, we are not financially uh, compensated for those issues and for those situations, in my personal opinion. So it's definitely not, and I have some notes here. It's definitely not um, a business where you can expect to get rich. Another thing is that everyone has to start off. You don't just jump in the game in any business, anything. Whether you flipping burgers at McDonald's, you don't just get hired as the manager without any type of leadership or managerial experience. Or being in the law enforcement business, you don't just get hired as a homicide detective or something like that. So, and even homicide detective, but in the topic I'm about to say. So you are going to have to pay your dues, and by paying your dues, you're going to be given usually the worst shift to begin with. And the worst shift to begin with is the middle of the day or super late at night. Um, and you're going to have the worst days off. You're going to have Tuesday, Wednesdays, Wednesday, Thursday, um, and you're just going to have to deal with that, man, until you're able to rack up enough seniority or you are able to position yourself into a better scheduling option. And since we're talking about scheduling, another thing that they don't usually tell you, and it's kind of like placed on you. And this is like I'm saying, everything I'm saying is for both behind the wall in corrections and on the street. Is another thing they don't really tell you is that you don't really have a say on when your shift is over. So let's say, for example, let's say you work and your shift is over at 4 o'clock, and at 4 o'clock, it's coming up. You're at the end of your shift. It's 3:30. All of a sudden, you get a call. You get tone on the radio, and there's dispatch saying that robbery in progress. Blah blah blah. Now all of a sudden, you're being sent over there to that location. You have to deal with that, or you're inside the prison, and they decide they want to start fighting, or they want to do whatever. A pipe bursts It doesn't even have to be something violent. It can be a flood that happens. Someone used the restroom and the toilet's backed up and the whole floor is flooded now. And you have to deal with that. And you can't leave. You can't leave your post, whether you're inside the jail, prison, whatever, or on the street until the situation that required your attention is completed. And unfortunately, sometimes uh, that can drag out for hours after you've worked all day, and you could have been running from call to call to call to call, or you could have been hopping from cell block to cell block, running around, putting out fires all over the compound, all over the institution, and then you have something that happened, and your day's been extended out, and that's something that you may have to deal with. Speaking of scheduling, also because you're a new guy, you are last hired, and you are first one required to be mandated for the next shift. So let's say, for example, you work first shift, second shift, someone got sick, they called out, or someone with higher seniority number than you is on vacation and is shortened the shift. You will be mandated over to the next shift. Sometimes those mandations only require you to work maybe half the shift, or you may have to work a whole nother shift. And what sucks about that is you could be scheduled to work the next day, and you end up working a double. So you're gonna be super tired. The time it takes for you to get from home to the job, you're gonna be taking those hours out. Um, in terms of sleep. So you're going to be tired for the next shift that comes up the next day. I mean, these are different things that happen, man. And you could end up being mandated depending on how your agency's scheduling and mandation rotations work. You could be mandated back to back to back. And unfortunately, that could cause a burnout. And I'll talk about how to try to avoid burnout in another video. But that could cause burnout. So you got to be cognizant that that's something that you could have to deal with and have to face when you're joining this business. Another thing that sucks about being in law enforcement is that sometimes politics enters the job. And in my personal experience, the smaller the agency, um, the more political it could get. And what I mean by political, I'm not necessarily talking about like what we're dealing with in terms of Republican and Democrat. With sometimes that too, if you're dealing with a sheriff's office, but because sheriffs are elected officials. But I'm talking about political in a sense of um, you being passed over for certain positions or certain training opportunities or even certain posts, for example, like if you're in a prison or a correctional setting, the more relaxed posts, the more relaxed positions where, you have less contact with aggressive personalities and hostile uh, individuals usually go to, or they've been known to usually go to people who are in the in crowd, so to speak. And, like if you're on the street, you could be placed more in administrative roles. You could be given more opportunities to do special projects, and that kind of sucks. It happens. It's something that a lot of agencies have been getting away from. It was more prevalent before my time. The old timers that I've worked with, they've had those conversations about how things really used to be. And in my opinion, my last 11 and a half, almost 12 years in the business, um, I've noticed that as a whole, law enforcement has gotten a lot better, but politics still does happen. There are still quid pro quo situations, even though sometimes that's illegal. No, not sometimes, that is illegal. This for that. And, it just happens, man. That's something that you'd have to deal with. And um, you have to have your own moral compass in confronting those type of situations where is it important to you what you were passed up for, or what you were, or an opportunity that you missed out on? Is there another way to get that? Um, is it something that you will have to continuously deal with? That's something that you had to kind of come to terms with on your own in terms of um, your level of wanting to, or the ability for you to be able to deal with that. So that's that. People, another one, it's a big one. People will fight you. You've chosen this business, you've chosen this career path, and being in this business, being this career path, um, it's not going to happen every day, but somebody is going to fight you. Period. Point blank. How you react in that situation will determine the outcome, whether it's a successful engagement, use of force is what we like to call it, whether you are in a correctional setting or on the street. Um, how you react to that situation will determine the outcome. If you run away, but you're charged with the responsibility of standing in the gap between evil and civilian. People call you, they talk to you usually on the worst days of their life. Like they're talking to you when they really don't have no one else to turn to, and they're looking for help. And a lot of times, people are, especially I'm talking basically like on the street. A lot of people are, um, they are like, like this is it. Like they need help. So you have to uh, you have to be able to take that in and react accordingly. So people are going to fight you. In my personal opinion, in my personal experience, you will get into more physical altercations in a jail. And I say jail because I'm not talking about prison, and I'm not talking about on the street. In a jail, because a jail, there are more revolving personalities in a jail than there are in a prison. Prison, people live there. They're not going anywhere for years. And true indeed, there are institutions where it's popping every day, like it's going down, like anything can happen, and or it's super dangerous. You know what I'm saying? But for the most part, um, there are checks and balances in place in a prison setting where certain certain segments of the inmate population, we call them the convicts, they draw the line on certain behaviors and certain activities because it brings more heat on them. So they kind of keep a certain level um, of violent behaviors in check. Now, in a jail, like I said, more revolving personalities. People come in and out of the jail every day. In a prison, you set your tone of what kind of officer you're going to be. Like it takes about a month or two, maybe, depending on what institution you're at, depending on how big the population and the level is. Um, and then after that, the institution's going to run itself, man. The inmates are going to run it because they know what to expect out of you every day. But in a jail, you constantly have to affirm who you are. You have to reaffirm your positions. You have to establish rapport with people on a constant, and that actually can contribute to burnout faster, in my opinion. The jail aspect. People are in there fighting cases. People are detoxing. Um, some people are still, they come right off the street drunk, so like you definitely gonna fight somebody in jail. Period, point blank. Now everything that you deal with on the street, you're not always gonna fight somebody on the street. I'm sorry, you're not going to fight somebody on the street as often as you would in a jail, because not every situation you're dealing with on the street, you're dealing with a violent personality. You may go to a car accident, and people they may be cool. They just want a police report for the insurance. You know what I'm saying? So you're not fighting anybody there. You can have days of nonviolent confrontations when you're on the street. You could literally be rescuing cats out of the tree, and then the next call you could be chasing down a murderer. And the next call, you could be helping an old lady find where her car is in the parking lot. So it's different stuff like that, man. You got to be able to shift gears, but in a jail setting, it's more opportunities for you to fight. So you need to be cognizant of that. You need to realize that that's a possibility. Another thing, since we're talking about physical confrontation, it behooves you, and this is me telling you what to expect in law enforcement. It behooves you to be physically fit and mentally strong for what you're going to deal with. And what I'm saying about physically fit, because there are situations where not just fighting someone, there are situations where you're going to need to be able to have the stamina to keep up with what you're dealing with. You may not have to fight a guy. One time, I had to chase some dudes like 3 blocks, and I have about 35 to 40 pounds of gear around my waist: firearm, magazine, handcuffs, spray, baton, taser, like all this stuff. It's heavy. And top of the leather belt that was there, handcuffs, 2 sets of handcuffs. Um, it's heavy and it's bouncing. So, and I have to keep up with someone who's not wearing anything like that, and I have to be able to have the breath to be able to radio my position. I'm sorry, radio my position, the direction to travel. I have to be able to give a description, to try to, if I can, to um, try to maneuver my help in the right direction to help me stop the suspect from fleeing. So that's that. And when we got to him, I mean, he surrendered. So I'm already, my adrenaline's pumping, and I'm having an adrenaline dump as I'm getting to handcuff this person. You see what I'm saying? So, and not everything happens in a fight, but I still needed to be in shape enough to be able to get to that person, and in shape enough to be able to control my adrenaline when I got to that person, so I didn't overreact to whatever I was dealing with. Um, in a correctional setting, same type of thing. I worked in a prison once where I was in the yard, and correctional officers have what's called personal body alarms, PBA. Different institutions, they call them like Spider. These alarm systems have like a safety button, a safety string. Sometimes they have a tilt. If you lean back too far for too long, it sets off an alarm. Any of these type of safety mechanisms can be engaged, and as a yard officer, you are required to go immediately dash and either verify that there's no problem or deal with the problem when you get there. So there was like a malfunction going on in the personal body alarm systems that was happening at the institution, and I was basically running a marathon all day, because I'm running from one side of the prison to the other side of the prison, from housing unit to other housing unit, checking people's PBAs, personal body alarms. And it's frustrating because we know the system's malfunctioning, but you never know if it's malfunctioning at that moment. You got to double check and make sure that there's nothing going on, or if it's a malfunction. And you'd rather it be a malfunction than it really be something and not respond to it. And that person could be looking for you to help them out. So, you got to have, and that's just cardio. I'm talking about running. Sometimes you got to lift stuff, man. Somebody could be trapped in a car. You respond to a call that a car is, they got into a car wreck and they could be trapped. EMS and fire department are not there yet, and a fire may break out. You need to try to help get this person out of the vehicle, man. You got to start using some might, to wedge them out of the problems and situations. So that's another thing that you got to think about right there, man. Is being physically fit and being in shape. Also, in the academy, you learn both in corrections, and you learn both as a police officer. You learn certain things called case law. Um, Case law, for example, one that applies to both, whether you're inside the wall or outside the wall, is Graham versus Connor. Graham versus Connor is the case law that determines use of force. Use of force is basically my physical reaction um, to how you were non-compliant. And non-compliant can be physically aggressive. It could be passively aggressively to the situation. It could be a whole host of different things. Non-compliant is basically you disobeying um, direct and lawful order. And my use of force towards that, and that varies depending on what it is. It could go as far as lethal force or non-lethal force, just grabbing and escorting. You know what I'm saying? Or my show of presence, me and several other officers being here. That's considered a form of non-physical use of force. Just I'm having a problem. Somebody's being overly aggressive, and okay, so a few officers just show up like, okay, man, now you need to beat it. You know what I'm saying? So that is all determined by Graham versus Connor. Now, the reason why I bring that up is because it's been in the news more recently than ever in our lifetimes. With the invention of the cell phone with the video camera, there have been videos caught of officers abusing other people and violating their civil rights. And most of the time, it's violating their civil rights through excessive force. And excessive force can cause you to be sued. So you could be doing something that you feel like requires a certain level of force, but you could be overdoing it, and therefore you could be sued for it. Now, people have this idea that there's like a blanket qualified immunity for officers and correction officers doing their job, but that's not true. If you are using excessive force, you should rightfully so be held accountable for that. And a lot of times, being held accountable for that, they told me in every academy that I've ever been to is that your accountability markers are you can get your money taken away from you and you can get your freedom taken away from you. So make sure you do what you're supposed to do and don't abuse people. And plus, that's a violation of people's Eighth Amendment right, man. Cruel and unusual punishment. You don't want to do that. So consider those things as negatives in this business if you decide to make this business your profession. All right. Next up, we're going to talk about the positive. All right, let's talk about things that you can be proud of um, if you decide to make law enforcement your career path. Um, it's an honor and a privilege to be able to serve the community in the capacity of standing in the gap between good and evil and protecting people. It's it takes a special type of personality. It takes a special type of individual to want to defend others, and when others are incapable of defending themselves. And that's I get a personal satisfaction out of that. I believe that that everyone is created for a purpose, and I believe my purpose is for that. Now, I don't think that I'm invincible. I don't think that I can beat everybody. I don't think um, that I'm judge, jury, and executioner, so to speak. But I do believe that people should be treated fairly, and that people who are trying to do the right thing should be free to take care of their families, should be free to work and earn a living, and not be bothered or accosted by people who want to threaten them physically or steal from them. And like I don't believe that people should be victimized. I don't like that. So it's an honor and a privilege to be able to do this kind of work. So that's one. Two, which is pretty important because as a guy like me, I'm getting older. And like you were going to be getting older one day too. And things that we think about when we get older is retirement. In law enforcement, because it's a government job, it's a government career. They usually have pretty good retirement in terms of pension plans and benefits and stuff like that for guys who go in for the long haul and ride it out to the sunset. And that's something that a lot of people don't think about when they're younger. But as they say, is a quote, as the sand, as more sand passes through the hourglass, the clearer the glass is to see through. So you know what I'm saying? You start to see it, and retirement is an important thing. So law enforcement usually offers good retirement options. Another thing is that this isn't talked about too much is that law enforcement usually People appreciate what you do, man. More times, in the news is not good at this, but more times than not, um, people appreciate what you do for them, even if they don't say it. You kind of, you can kind of, you can kind of sense it. You can kind of see it, especially those who are the ones who are being victimized. Because, like I said in the beginning of this segment, is that that's really what you do it for. You know, you stand in the gap for people who are being victimized, who are being threatened, who are being abused, and you're letting them know that you are defending them, that you are going to protect them, and that you are going to remove the scourge away from them as they are being bothered. And that's something to be proud of, man. So those people are usually the ones who are thankful, and that is the voice that usually matters the most. So yeah, definitely. Um, you know, another thing that is uh, positive about this career is that, in training, you get to learn some really cool stuff. You get to work with a lot of really cool gear. Um, even as a corrections officer, they have opportunities in different agencies to join, like a rapid response team or the special response teams, and they work with different toys and tools, and then going onto the street, being a law enforcement officer on the street. You get to like I said, I've worked with local, state, and a lot of the alphabets, and on the federal level, and just the level of training and the level of experience and knowledge that you can pull from different people. It's a really cool and humbling experience to deal with at the same time. So, that's something that's something that kind of sticks with you, and it makes, for me anyway, it makes life so much more enjoyable to be able to share these experiences and learn and work and just get better at what you do every day. Uh, so yeah, that's definitely a positive. Another thing that's kind of cool, being in law enforcement, you get an idea of how the legal system actually works, and you're able to explain that to some people. You get the opportunity to actually explain that to some people who may not fully understand, and and that includes like family. Maybe they don't even get in trouble, but you can give them a perspective of how you work and what law means from both sides of the spectrum, like as the criminal and as the one who arrests the criminal. And if you've had the privilege, like I have, to work both inside the correctional setting and on the street, you have an even fuller view of how the legal system works, because you can kind of see the whole process. You can see how the arrest happens. You can see how the court happens, because if you arrest them, 9 times out of 10, you have to go to court, and testify based off of whatever your experience was and what you had to deal with in the arrest. And then, being a corrections officer, you can kind of know the process of, like, the booking, the classification, the setting them in the housing unit, the the what the daily struggles that they'd have to experience, being in a jail, and even going to a prison, what it's like to release someone back into the street. Just that type of, you have a lot of insight and a lot of knowledge that you can be able to share and try to change the lives of other people that you interact with. There's a whole host of other positive interactions and positive experiences that you can get out of the law enforcement business. It's just is based off of what you decide to get out of this as a law enforcement officer. All right, now I know it seems like I've given you a list of things, both positive and negative, and my list of negative seems a whole lot bigger and more extensive, more detailed than a list of positive. But I want to tell you that honestly, I love what I do, and I love the career choice and career path that I've chosen. I just wish that I would have chosen this career path a whole lot sooner in life, because I'd be a whole lot further with a whole lot more greater experiences and greater friendships and things like that along the way. The reason why I did that is because I know it's just there's just people that are probably gonna make comments under this video that have a whole host of good and bad experiences that I didn't even mention. But the reason why I gave you the list of negatives and positives is because, and it's kind of just like I said, a basic brief overview, is because I want you to see the field that this career path has, and kind of see some of the obstacles, some of the pitfalls, the highs and lows, and I really want you to make a good executive decision as to, is this something that you want to do, something that you want to be a part of. Now, me already being in law enforcement, I would be considered like a leader to those who are just coming into the business. And a good leader wants to make sure that they raise up other leaders, because those people who are going to become leaders are the leaders that's going to replace me as I replace the ones who came before me, and so on and so forth. So it's imperative that, you know, you give them the good, bad, the ugly, and indifferent, and have them make a decision on their own as to if this is something that they're going to do. Always here at the Gray Man Podcast, I implore everyone all the time to train hard, train often, train properly, and train safely. Make sure you continue to train, because you will always rise and fall to your highest level of training. All right? Like, subscribe, comment, and share. Leave your comments below, man. All right, everyone out there, y'all stay blessed and be safe. Peace.